Good evening, and welcome to the Do Tell Story Swap of Sonoma County. My name is Katie Mangan, and I am your host for this evening. We've got a great lineup of tellers, so we need to get started right away. Just so you know, stories are to be told and not read, and to be between up to about 7 minutes, or if you have a longer one, maybe 10 minutes at the most. During the evening, we will take a break, but before we take the break, we will give you a question. And then after the break, you'll come back and answer it. And also just introduce yourself. So it's a lovely way of us getting to know where you come from and who you are. So please keep yourself muted unless you're telling a story. And after the break, also, Meg and Vicky will give us announcements. Right, good. So let's get on with the show. So our first teller tonight is Beverly Schwartz. Welcome, Beverly.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Shall I begin? Okay. Okay. This is a true story. The name of it is called The Mouse. It was during COVID. I was stuck in the house with my 3 cats. They'd see me coming and say, "Run, here she comes again. She wants to pet us." But the 4 of us got through the COVID. But during the COVID, I needed to talk to my gastrointestinal doctor. And he said, "We're going to have a teleconference because we're not seeing any more patients for a while." I said, "Okay, that sounds good. I'll call you at 4:30 and we'll talk." I said, "Great." Well, I got my table cleared off. I got my phone right next to me. And I said, I better check on my cats. Maybe I should put them in the basement or something so they don't interrupt me. So I walked in. Right where I'm sitting is a half wall, and on the other side is my couches and the fireplace and a TV against the wall. And there were my 3 vicious cats who loved to catch mice. And their tails were up and their rear ends were up and their paws were in front of them ready to pounce. I said, "Oh my God, a mouse must have gotten in through the fireplace and it was under a quilt right in front of the fireplace." Oh, they go crazy when there's a mouse in the house. So I said, I go back to the kitchen and I got a kitchen towel. I said, I'll try to lift up with one hand and see if there's a mouse down there. And then with the other hand, grab it, get it, and run to the garage and let it go free. And as I did it, I said, "There is a mouse," and it was staring at me with its eyes bulging. And oh, and it flew over my head and started running into the part of the living room. And there the 3 cats followed, and it ran directly behind the TV. It was a huge wooden stand with the TV on it, and one mouse, there goes, and then one cat on one side of the TV, the other cat, and the other one in front. And there they were again, tails up in the air and their rear ends and shaking and going, "Arr!" And they quieted down. And then the phone rang. I said, "Oh my God, that mouse better not be stupid enough to run out. And where there's 3 cats on 3 sides of it, there's no way a mouse would do that." So I walked over and the phone had rang. "Hello, hello. Oh, hi, Dr. Folk. How you doing?" And I'm trying to keep an eye on what's happening in the other room. And we start talking. Now, as we're talking, all of a sudden I looked to my left. And there was my boy David. And he had the mouse in his mouth. And I'm going, "Oh my God." I'm saying to myself, don't jump, don't jump on the table. Just take the mouse back into the living room." But what does David do? He looks around and I hear the other 2 scurrying towards the half wall. He jumps on the table and splouses right on in front of me. I said, "Oh my God, David, drop it. You're going to kill it. You're going to kill the mouse." I didn't say the mouse, though. I said, "You're going to kill it." And there, my other 2 cats have now jumped on the half wall, and they're flying towards me. He looks back, he sees me. The mouse drops onto the table, and then it jumps right on my shoulder. And then I say, get off me! Get off me! You're gonna kill me! Get off me! And the cat and the mouse jumps on the floor. David follows it. The other two follows, and I take the phone and I'm running. Whoa! And I say, stop! Stop! You're gonna kill! Stop killing! Oh my God! So I live in a colonial. And the colonial is a house where you can go like from the kitchen to the dining room to the entranceway to the living room and around in a circle. So we run all the ways, the mouse, the cats, me, we run one circle. And then as we come through the dining room, there's a closet, coat closet. And the mouse goes skidding underneath the door, and the cats go, bloop, their heads hit, their tails go up, and their rear goes up. And I'm stopping. And all of a sudden, I hear, Bev, are you okay? Should I call the police? Is someone trying to kill you? What's happening? Beverly. I forgot I was talking to my doctor. Oh my God. It sounded like he was having a heart attack. Oh, Dr. Vogt. Oh, I'm okay. I'm okay. No one's trying to kill me. He goes, oh, what's happening? What's happening? He was hysterical. I started laughing. I go, oh my God. I scared the hell out of this guy. Well, I said, doctor, and I told him, I had a mouse and I tried to explain. He goes, you're okay? I just want to know if you're okay. Yes, I'm okay. I'll talk to you later. And he hung up on me. Oh my God. Oh my God. I hope I'm saying he'll never probably want to see me again. And he was one of my best doctors. He was one of my favorites. Well, I got a cloth and I put it in front of the closet door so the mouse couldn't get out. And I put my cats down in the basement. I was yelling at them, bad, you know? And then I said, later, tomorrow morning, I will try to get the mouse out of the closet. And in the morning, I came down, and the mouse wasn't in the closet anymore. I said, oh my God, it must have gotten loose. Went back. Oh, oh. So I was looking around the first floor of my house, and I didn't see it on the top floor. And so I went down to the basement where I had put the three cats. And there was the mouse. It had succumbed to probably internal injuries. And the three of them, look at mommy. And it was, they went around and look what we did. Well, that's mice and cats do that to each other, right? So I picked the cat up and moved him off to another room in the basement. And I gathered the poor mouse and I wrapped it up in some toilet paper that was from the bathroom. And I carried it outside and I dug a hole and gave it a decent burial. Now, a month later, I was able to go see my doctor in his office. They had lifted the COVID visits. And I went in and I go, what am I going to say to this guy? The first thing is he walks in, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. I hope you'll still keep me as a patient. And he looked at me for about a good minute. He goes, yeah, I will. But you scared the hell out of me. And I went home and I told my wife what happened. And she tried not to laugh, but she couldn't help it either. And he said, you know what I told her? They teach us everything we need to know in medical school of how to handle all different types of situations. But they've never taught us how to do phone calls to patients because we never had a COVID like we have now. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to call the police or call the fire department or an ambulance for you. I thought someone was killing you. And I'm trying not to laugh. And even as I tell now, I want to just giggle and laugh at the whole situation. And he said, Bev, promise if we ever have to have another phone call, your cats are put away before we start talking. And I said, I promise, I promise. And that's the story of the mouse that happened during COVID. Thank you.
Beth, that's such a great story. So well told. Oh my goodness. And those cats, those nasty cats. And I just love it, whether your poor doctor thinking that you were being murdered.
Oh, I get ready to just I'm seeing him tomorrow morning at like 7:15 or something, 8:15, and then, like every time I see him, I want to giggle and laugh when over it, but I dare not say anything.
I'm
He's
sure
still taking me as a patient.
yeah, I'm sure he wants to forget it. Great telling. Thank you so much. Good way to start the evening.
Little does he know that it's being told around the world.
Yeah, I know. Well, don't tell him.
No.
Well done. So nice start to the evening. And our next teller is
Mm.
Beth Wakely. So please welcome Beth to the stage. Thank you.
Hi, I'm going to share a very special story I heard just this week from Neshama Franklin. And with that, and starting with a little bit of unpolished story it is, but once there was a rather rude ruler. So rude he had no regard for anything else but his own accumulation of wealth. In fact, his coffers were overflowing, and his palace walls were bursting at the seam, but still he could not be content, especially during that time when the moon was full and it was shining its beautiful light down. He was lusting over that lovely, luminous light. He wanted it so badly. He knew that if he could get up and touch the moon, the silver would flow down and fill up his entire accumulation of wealth, and he would be maybe that would be okay. And so he demanded, he never requested, he demanded of his carpenter to build a stairway so that it was high enough he could touch the moon. The carpenter scratched his head, knowing there was no ladder he could make that would lean. There was nothing to lean against. What could he do? Well, in that realm, they kept all their belongings in trunks. They didn't have closets. They had small homes, but all the trunks were requisitioned for this purpose to pile one on top of the other so that a tower was indeed built, and it was very, very high. And the king, in spite of all, he could climb, and he climbed up, and it's not high enough. I demand it to get higher now. He had no patience. Oh, what could the carpenter do? Every stick of furniture had to be redone, deconstructed, and then reframed into a trunk so that it could fit onto this pile. And it was so sad. The folks had no furniture left at all. But still, when the king reached the top, it was close, but not close enough, and his rage came pouring out. The forests had to be sacrificed. Every tree around had to give up its shady glades, its boughs that caught the wind. Every tree was milled down to lumber, and the lumber created into another trunk. This was very, very tall indeed. The king was so close when he reached the top. He knew he could get there. I need 2 or 3 more trunks. Hurry up, hurry up. Carpenter called up as best he could, the voice reaching up. There is no more to build with, nothing. Well, you insolent fool, called the ruler. You just take a few from the bottom. And so he did. And so it is that everything that goes up eventually comes down. And I'll leave it at that for you to decide how you feel about it.
Oh, you just tell the best story. It's wonderful. Thank you. And just all the different stages, of building the stairway, the trunks, and then the furniture and the forest, and then taking them from the bottom. Perfect. As some of those people don't have high intelligence. Thank you again. Let's welcome Kenneth Foster to the stage. Kenneth, welcome.
Oh, welcome. I love that story. That was good. Well, about 2 years ago, Ba Yu died. His death was sudden and unexpected, and it created a difficult situation for the plantation where he was the overseer. It also created a difficult situation for his two wives. There was no more income, no one to provide for them. Ba Yu had been the plantation overseer for many years. He was diligent in his job. He was a hard worker. He was honest. And the plantation grew and succeeded in many ways. And because of that, Ba Yu, he was able to take care of his two wives in a manner that most could not. His first wife lived in the heart of the city. She loved the city life, the excitement. She loved her apartment there and going out and dressing in nice clothes and just having a great time. His second wife, she wanted a garden and a little bit of yard. So her home was at the edge of the city. Now, the city was some distance from the plantation, and Ba Yu could not always get back to his wives when he wanted to. Sometimes he had to work weeks on end and would not make it to see his wives. But when he came, he would always bring gifts. And if the plantation had excess of food or other things, he would ask permission if he could take some of that excess to his wives. And the owners of the plantation agreed. So Ba Yu was very generous with his wives. And when he visited his wives and presented them gifts and other food and other things, he would always say to them, "When you eat, spread your fingers." Now, the first wife had no idea what this meant. She just couldn't figure it out. She would go and make a gorgeous meal with the food, and then she would step out onto her patio and raise her hands high in the air and spread her fingers and say, "I don't know why, but Ba Yu said, spread my fingers, so I'm spreading my fingers." And then she would go back in and eat that luscious meal that she had prepared. The second wife understood completely the saying, "When you eat, spread your fingers." And she would share the things that Ba Yu brought with her neighbors and with those in need. Sometimes they would cook together and they would sit around and laugh and have a wonderful time as they ate together. And this went on for several years. But as I'd mentioned, 2 years ago, Ba Yu died. Things were difficult for his two wives. His first wife wanted to keep her standing in the city. It was difficult. She had to sell some of her precious things just to make ends meet. The second wife, although more humble situations, was doing okay. Neighbors were sharing with her. One neighbor even brought her a cow that she could keep. So the second wife was doing fairly well, considering the circumstances. This one day, The first wife was very upset, and she crossed the city and went to visit the second wife. And she walked into the house and she said, "Sister, why is it that I am starving and destitute? And you're here, you have food, and you're seeming to do so well." And the second wife said, "Well, what did you do when Bayou brought you food and brought you gifts? What did you do?" "Well, I cooked the food and I put on the gifts or put them away. That's what I did." "Oh, I see," said the second one. "What was it that Bayou always said to us when he brought us these things?" The first wife thought for a minute. "Oh, something about eating and spreading my fingers." "So what did you do?" said the second wife. "Well, I fixed a meal and I went out on my patio and stuck my hands in the air and spread my fingers." "Ah, I see," said the second wife. "Maybe it's the air that should provide for you. See, I shared half or more with my neighbors, and now they're providing for me." So this little story is a lesson to you, my friends. Before you eat, spread your fingers.
Oh, Kenneth, that's great. Thank you so much. Always so beautifully told. And it is such a great reminder. And I shall try and remember to spread my fingers.
Well, in this time and age, we need to do that.
Yes. Thank you for that
Sure.
reminder. Wonderful. Let's have Lori. Are you ready, or Lori, would you go up? Would like to go next after the next person?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. So let's welcome Lori Riom to the stage. Welcome, Lori.
Our family often got festive and had a lot of fun around the holidays. And in February, my grandpa would make this really elaborate Valentine's box and decorate it up and lace doilies and construction paper and all kinds of hearts. And then everybody would make their own Valentines and put them in the box. It was like a very special occasion. And come October, my mom would conjure up really interesting costumes for her many kids. And so I think I grew up with that sense of playfulness and creativity. So a few years ago, my companion Joe and I were invited to a Halloween party, and the invitation actually specified nothing store-bought. They didn't want masks and store-bought capes and just easy off-the-shelf kind of things. So, oh goody, this will be fun. So I went to a rummage sale. I looked around for ideas, and I found this red dress. It was knee length, and it was true red. It was definitely striking. And thought, well, let's see what I can do with that. And just a little while later, I found this white, frilly kind of blouse with a lot of lace and eyelets and stuff. And I thought, together they look kind of like a Valentine. So I thought, well, maybe I can work with that. So I get home and I'm thinking, okay, now how do I do this? So fortunately at the thrift store, I found somebody had donated cloth hearts that were already neatly cut out. And they were in pink and white and red colors and patterns already. It was probably going to be a Valentine or love-oriented quilt. I thought, perfect. So I get home and I'm not really into sewing. And the fabric was kind of fancy, so it was hard to sew these hearts onto the dress. They puckered up and they kind of looked like a heart attack. So that won't work. So I thought, what can I do next? Well, maybe double stick tape. Nope, everything just fell off. I thought, well, how much effort do I want to put into this costume? And so I finally just resorted to a stapler, which did the trick. Now my heart's had stents. But anyway, I had fun thinking of what else to do. And there's so many heart-shaped things out there. I found some earrings and some socks and other things to try to make myself look like a Valentine. In the meantime, I asked Joe, hey, what are you going to do for the costume? I don't know. I'm not worried about it. Got plenty of time. So I'm continuing this process, and it turns out the week before the party, the farmer's market was having a costume party. So I thought, great, I'll have a dry run. So I get all dressed up. I've got my hair in ponytails and red and white ribbons, and I felt so happy. And I show up and people are looking at me and like, I think she's got a costume on, but I have no idea what she's supposed to be. That was kind of the general look I got. And I thought, well, there's hearts all over my dress. Does that give you a clue? Not really. A couple people reluctantly guessed, well, are you Raggedy Ann? I thought, no, I don't have orange yarn hair. So back to the drawing board at home. And then I thought about those chalk hearts that everybody passes around for Valentine's and what you usually see in a box of chocolates and what's the most favorite thing people say at that holiday. It's be mine. So aha. So I got a big white heart and put it over the red dress and wrote be mine across my front, very large. And I also happened to find a heart-shaped pillow that was really puffy. And I thought, okay, I'm going to decorate that and I'll pin it to the back of the dress. So no matter what you see, what part of me you see, you're going to see hearts, and they're going to be larger hearts. So this should do the trick. The day of the party came and I said to Joe, we have to leave in an hour. And so he just kind of gets out of the recliner and shuffles around the house and he goes to his closet and wanders around to the workshop. And I have no idea what he's doing. He probably doesn't either. And I'm getting ready to go. And he comes out and he goes, okay, I'm ready. I said, well, what are you? What's that supposed to be? He has this oversized green tie-dye shirt. He's got some kind of canvas jacket with weird patches all over it. He's wearing black tights. He's got a belt and he's got a glow stick stuck in the belt. He's got a purple ski hat and on top he's got a little orange cone. And I said, what is it? He goes, well, I'm not sure, but I'll figure it out when we get there. Okay. So we get to the party and Mr. Ho-Hum immediately comes to life and he's got this whole story planned out. Well, it wasn't planned. It was just came out of him. And he goes, yeah, I'm Zork from the planet Exxon. And this here stick is my rocket fuel. And I didn't know he had done this until I saw it. But he had rigged his little orange cone to light up. So he got quite a bit of attention and people were charmed by his story. In the meantime, I'm wandering around and having fun and feeling very Valentine-y, and most people got it. Although I can tell you the people who are under 35 really weren't familiar with that phrase, be mine. And that made me sad. Like I thought that was a generational thing that everybody knows and it'll continue to happen. It's just like Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny. Be mine. It's Valentine's. Anyway, I had a lot of fun. I gave out a lot of hugs and there were a lot of creative costumes. So I think I spent about 20 hours on this thing with all the different projects and going back to the drawing board and figuring out how else I could make this work. And he spent about 20 minutes. So I was kind of hoping I might get the prize for most original because, I mean, have you ever met a human Valentine? But I didn't win a prize. He did.
Oh, Lori, what a bummer. Annoying. I love that story because, you had the dry run at the farmer's market. That's what I think is just so hysterical. I would never think of doing something so creative and brave as that. And the be mine. And I think the thing that I really do enjoy is when you staple the heart. Anyway, it's just fabulous. And thank you. And I just have to tell everyone that Lori shared this story with me, but she also shared the photograph of her and Joe. So It was a great costume. You should have won a prize.
Thank you.
So thank you, Lori, very much. So let's move on and invite Walter to our stage. Walter, welcome.
Midnight Ride, April 18th, Boston, 1775. Dr. James Joseph Warren asked Paul Revere to come to his home. Dr. Warren had learned that the British might ride northwest of Boston that night. He and his fellow patriot believed that they were going to Lexington and going to arrest Samuel Adams and John Hancock. Afterward, they would march on Concord and seize gunpowder, rifles, and cannon from the Sons of Liberty. Dr. Warren asked Paul Revere to ride into the countryside and warn Hancock, Adams, and the Son of Liberty. Earlier that evening, the doctor had met with Robert Newman, sexton, Christ Church, North Side, to hang a lantern in the tower. He would hang one lantern if the British were to march by land. If the British were to row across the Charles River by sea, he would hang two lanterns. Paul Revere agreed to ride into the countryside and warn Adams, Hancock, and the Sons of Liberty. He returned home, gathered a coat and his riding boots, walked out his door. He took back streets and alleyways toward the river. It was cold that night. It was wet. A thick blanket of fog hung over the Charles River as he made his way to the dock. There he met two friends who silently rowed him to Charlestown. At anchor were several British ships, especially the Somerset, a 70-gun British man of war. They silently rowed unnoticed and deposited Paul Revere on the shore. There he had met Robert Evans, who had borrowed Brown Beauty, a horse for him to ride. While they waited for the signal, Devon said to him, "There are rumors that riders are out to stop anyone from getting through and warning Hancock, Adams, and the Sons of Liberty." Just then, in the tower, a single lantern lit. Paul Revere mounted Brown Beauty. Devon said to him, "Why don't you stop by and see Barnaby? He will know if there are any riders out to stop someone from getting through." Paul Revere set his spurs and rode into the night. The Green Dragon Tavern, a tavern where one could speak of liberty, where men could whisper behind closed doors of freedom. A lad stepped down, took the reins as Paul Revere took off his horse. "Are you Paul Revere?" "Yes, I am. My father said you might be here." "Is that Brown Beauty, the fastest horse in the county?" "Yes, it is. Not a drop of British blood in him. He's an American purebred." "What is your name, son?" "Ben, after Mr. Franklin. He and my father's are friends." "Mr. Revere, I will watch Brown Beauty for you." Paul Revere walked towards the door. "Mr. Revere," he turned, "there's trouble in the air." Paul Revere opened the door. A warm breeze took the chill off. As he stepped into the room, a fire was crackling in the fireplace. Eyes turned. They all knew this man. He approached the bar. Barnaby said, "I take it the British are out for a ride tonight?" "A tankard before you go?" "Just one. I have a long ride." Barnaby poured him ale into the tankard. He leaned forward and said, "There was a man in here earlier today." Paul said, "What did he look like?" "Tall, dressed in black, armed, one not to be challenged." Paul took a sip of his tankard. The door opened. Colonel Thomas walked in. "Barnaby, a shot of whiskey, if you please, to take the chill off." Barnaby set a glass on the bar, filled it. He turned to Paul Revere and said, "You've been betrayed. You've been sold out. There's a price on your head. Stop Paul Revere." Just then, the door burst open. A gust of wind carries into the room, knocks the shot glass on the floor, and the whiskey pours across the bar top. The stranger, the man in black, had returned. As he crossed the tavern, his eyes scanned the room, measuring, judging. The mood in the tavern had changed. The only sound you heard was a crackling of the fire. The man next to the fire closed his fist around a fire iron. Another man sitting at a wooden table placed a pistol in plain sight. Another pulled a knife from his vest and set it to his tankard. Silently, a message was sent through the room. "You will not stop him. You will not take him here. We have his back." The stranger slowed. He knew he was not among friends. He stopped before Paul Revere. "You must be Paul Revere." "How do you know that?" "You're a horse. Only a fool will ride Brown Beauty out on a night. You cannot win. You cannot fight. Your words are on worthless pieces of paper. Your rebellion will fail. You will always be servants of the king." Paul Revere met his glaze. "You then tell me freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of worship, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are not worthy cause? Your world is old and dying. You rule by decree and bayonet. Ours will be written by free men. We will outlive your king." The man reached into his jacket to pull out a knife. Just then the door opens. Ben sticks his head in. "Mr. Revere, it's time to ride." That's all Paul needed. He took the tankard, swung it across the man in black, knocking him off his balance. The colonel pushes him to the floor, stomps his hand on his wrist. The knife shattered. He reaches for the pistol on the bar top and points it at the man. Barnaby says, "Paul, go ride. Our friend here will take care of him." Paul Revere says, "Barnaby, what do I owe you?" Barnaby answers, "Not tonight, my friend. It's on the house." Revere walks to the door. He turns to all his friends and nods and salutes. He walks out. Ben hands him the reins. He gets on his horse. Ben says, "Mr. Revere, go far and wide. Tell every man, woman, and child, the British are coming. The British are coming." Revere whispers into Brown Beauty's ear, "Are you ready to ride?" He picks up, he tosses Ben a coin, sets his spur, and rides into the night. That night, Paul Revere spread the word far and wide to every man, woman, and child. The British are coming. The British are coming. That night, Paul Revere rode into history.
Wow, Walter, that was just amazing. Oh, I could hardly breathe. I mean, all the details were so good. You know, the riding of the horse, rowing quietly, silently by the British warship, but then in the tavern with all the people and the weapons and setting the tone. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Right. Okay, so I'm wondering, would we like to take a break now, or would we like to have, well, Vicky, would you like to do your story now? Shall we have your story and then we'll take a break? Does that sound good? Okay. All right. So let us welcome Vicky to the stage. And I just have to say, in case in the excitement at the end or forget, Vicky is our technical director. And she is just doing a superb job, even though she doesn't think she is. So we just want to say thank you, Vicky. We really appreciate this, and also coming and bringing us a story too. That is very generous. Okay, take it away.
And this is how come you see a pause while I try to find the next storyteller. Well, it was obviously winter. Snow was piled on snow, except where there were granite outcroppings and some iron hard ground swept bald by the wind. And oh yes, there was winter bare branches of trees like black lace against the snow. And a distant, indifferent sun cast a tissue paper thin light over the whole scene of mountains and hills and valleys. But in the valley, most peculiar, there were little tiny people walking. You could see them if you looked real close. Little tiny people. You could see their little footsteps in the snow behind them. But in front of them, everything was swept clean. Where were they going? What on earth were they doing in that bleak landscape? What a ridiculous thing. It was just very peculiar. But more peculiar than that was the fact that the whole image was printed on a record album cover. And over the top of it, it said, remembering forgotten songs in big writing, forgotten songs in script, with that picture. Well, when those record albums came into the record shop, the store owner put them in the window like he did all the new releases so that people could gawp at them as they went by. And gawp they did. And sure enough, some of the people came in to flip the album over to see what the forgotten songs were. But there was nothing listed. Okay. And some of the braver ones thought, I don't care. I'm going to buy it and find out what the forgotten songs are. And they went home with their albums and they slit the cellophane and poured out the record, but there was no record in it. It was empty. It was an empty cardboard sleeve. There was no record in the record album cover. Oh, they were very angry. Oh, nobody likes being taken to the cleaners. No, sir. So they all went down to the record store and they squawked at the owner. This is highway robbery. There's no record in here. Well, the record store owner, who really didn't want to have to return all those records and give people back his money, had to think fast. And what he said was, well, how could you expect there to be a record of songs that everybody's forgotten? The only songs that are going to be on a record are songs that people have remembered. These are songs that have been forgotten. So if they're forgotten, they couldn't be on a record, could they? Well, they had to admit, each and every one of them, he had a point. But still, they'd been hoodwinked. So they went home, each and every one of them, and put up the record album cover, like on the bookcase leaning against the wall, or on their desk leaning up, so they could be reminded how they had been cheated, hoodwinked by robbers. People, I swear, people. You can't trust them farther than you can throw them. Well, the days went by and people's anger simmered down. And some of them actually looked at the cover and thought, forgotten songs, what? And then they started to recall songs that they actually had forgotten. Or, for example, how shaboom, shaboom, yada, 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 shaboom, shaboom, landed them in the arms of their heartthrob on a Christmas dance at the school gymnasium in high school. Oh, they'd never forget that. Or how a particular song that they loved was blaring right at New Year's Eve, and everybody was dancing and having fun and flirting, and the whole new year opened up to their favorite song. Or how they cradled a little baby in the deep, dark pocket of night and sang some patch of a lullaby that they remembered when they were children. And they rocked and they sang, and the great wondering eyes of their baby looked up at them, and the song wrapped that child in warmth and love. And the more they thought about these songs, the more it occurred to them that when they dredged them up from the past, the songs didn't come alone. No, they came with people. People. those that were loved and those who were longed for, those who were held close and those who had to be released. People, the warp and the weft of the fabric of their hearts. And then they thought to themselves, I'm going to look at that picture again. And they did. And they looked closer. And oh yes. Now you see what they were looking at wasn't the cold and fragile light of the sun. They weren't looking at the bleak, impossible landscape and the terrible, frigid cold, or of the ridiculousness of this journey from nowhere to nowhere. This absurd journey. What they were looking at was the people, the little tiny people. And sure enough, on closer inspection, you could see they were holding each other's hands. And that made all the difference.
Oh, Vicky. So creative, so beautiful. All the descriptions. I mean, the one that I love, about the lullabies, the description of the babies being wrapped with warmth and love, and then how you finish with the people were holding hands. It's just glorious.
Thank you.
So thank you. It's just such a treat to hear your stories. So let's take a break. It's about 10 to, so let's come back just before 8. But before we go, this is your question. What is your favorite instrument and why? What's your favorite instrument to play, correct? Musical instrument, are we talking about that? Yeah. So what is your favorite musical instrument to play and why? And so, go.
It's not just to play, it's to hear.
Oh,
Because you may not be able to play.
Got it. Okay, so what is your favorite instrument and why? Thank you.
Yeah.
We all got that? Okay, so let's meet. Let's just take a 5-minute break, shall we? So let's meet like at 5 to 8. Sounds good? Okay. Okay, welcome back, everyone. And now we're going to answer the question. And then after the question, Meg and Vicky have some announcements. So the question again is, what is your favorite instrument and why? So I could start, we'll take it in turns. We'll say our name and where we're from. Hi, I'm Katie Mangan and I live in Santa Rosa. And my favorite instrument is a drum, a shamanic drum, which I actually use and play every morning. And I got the drum because I met Vina. Where is Vina? There she is. And she started a women's drumming group, and we would drum every full moon. And we did this for years and years and years, and it was just so much fun. So thank you, Vina. And who should we go to next? Kenneth? Or no, Vicky, do you want to is it easier for you to call out people?
Nope.
Okay, so let's, Kenneth, would you like to answer the question?
I'm Kenneth Foster. I'm in Ephraim, Utah, which is in the center of Utah. And I guess when you first said about playing an instrument, I was going to say CD player, but because I don't play. But my favorite instrument actually to hear is a saxophone. I love jazz, and saxophones are prominent in a lot of jazz pieces, and I just love the sound of that. So.
Rose.
My favorite instrument is the human voice. The human voice, the expression in it, the music, the musicality, I'm from Livermore, California, Rose Owens. I remember just a conversation with my brother just the other day, and we were talking about it, and he was doing his animal imitations. He could do a Donald Duck imitation that it was just loved it as a child. And so the human voice that can tell stories and sing songs and express emotion and reach out to people, I love it.
Great. Thank you, Rose. Bev, what's your favorite instrument?
Uh, my voice also. Now that I think of it, I was going to say piano because I played piano when I was little. But as a teacher, the way I used my voice and I sang a lot to the kids, I made up little songs for them, um, just tickle my fancy and their fancy as well. And like we'd take a regular song and make it into a fun song, like on top of spaghetti or covered with cheese. And the kids really got into that, and they made up their own songs because of that. At show and tell, they would say, "I have a song today that I made up," and we'd all listen to it, and we encouraged the kids to like singing. So, just using my voice and creating silly little songs, they did the same thing back to me.
That's lovely. Thank you. Sharon.
I have a brand new favorite instrument. I have it right here. Can you hear that?
No.
No.
I was afraid of that. It's this thing. It's a drum that's made out of leftover steel parts, kind of like the Jamaican steel drums. And I wondered whether the sound would carry on Zoom so I could use it in stories, but it doesn't, so I won't. But this is Sharon Elwell, and I'm in Washington.
Thank you. Yeah, it's annoying and that you can't hear the instruments.
Yeah, it has.
That would be so cool to add that to the stories. Vicky.
I think my favorite is the piano because it's just such, it can be Vince Guaraldi, it could be somebody playing an old hymn on an upright piano in a church, it can be a concert. There's something about the piano that to me speaks the human voice and all issues of the human voice. So,
Thank you. Beth, what's your favorite instrument?
Hi, I'm Beth, and I'm from Sebastopol, California. And this is a huge, just it brings the whole symphony into my vision. But I have to say, guitar for the versatility of it. And only thing I wanted for my 18th birthday was to hear flamenco, and that's just been in love with any of that type of that rhythm and any Celtic music, anything like that. And I'm an old folky, so my husband used to play the guitar. I think that's what won me over. So,
Perfect.
but for a personal instrument that I play, we have an old popcorn jar, Jolly Time popcorn, made when it was in the steel cans. It makes a great shaker.
Great. Thank you. Meg.
I also am a big fan of the guitar. When I was a teenager, kind of, out there, how teenagers are, they don't want to do anything, be anywhere, rah, that sort of thing. But it was very comforting. And so I learned to play. And because of my parents' influence, I was not into rock and roll or anything like that. I liked classical, flamenco, Spanish music, all that sort of stuff on a acoustic guitar. But as I grew older, I learned so much how the guitar can talk. And so I've always been a big fan of really good guitarists in the music industry today. I seek them out because they can make their guitars, now that they're electric, they can just make them sound like almost any instrument. And I heard one of my favorite performers, Joe Bonamassa, he made his guitar sound like a violin. How did he do that? So I'm awed by the guitar and what it can do, especially now that it's electric. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Walter, what is your favorite? And you'll need to unmute.
The piano. When I was young, my grandmother took me to the symphony to see Rachmaninoff's Paganini. And I was probably 15 years old. And she got tickets so I could sit and see the keys, see him play. And as a 15-year-old watching that whole symphony and that whole piano piece sold me on the piano, and I've been a piano fan all my life.
Lovely. Thank you. Genevieve.
I'd say that the cello, it truly plays the strings of the heart. But I have to say that what came to mind was a rain stick. So, and also, Sharon, I don't know, but there might be a way to change the settings when you're telling a story to make Zoom more sensitive. The plus side of the fact that Zoom doesn't pick up music is that Zoom has changed its sensitivity so that it also doesn't pick up barking dogs and concrete breakers and things like that. Just wanted to mention that.
Oh, that's really good to know,
You
Genevieve.
might check, I'm not sure, but I think that there might be a setting that you can do.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
the music setting.
I think you're right too. Thank you. Laurie, what is your favorite instrument?
Well, not to be repetitive, but piano is my favorite because I play the piano. I have since I was 7. I've performed professionally for 40 years and I taught piano and I still enjoy playing. I just recorded a piece the other day. So it gives me a lot of pleasure. And as several of you mentioned, you can play a lot of different styles. And one of my favorite things to do is just sit down with no sheet music there and just improvise and just see what comes up. And then I find myself playing a song and then that leads to another song and it's a half hour later. So I enjoy hearing piano and playing it.
Lovely. We enjoy listening to you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Laurie. Fina, what is your favorite instrument?
Well, I also fell in love with the cello as an appreciator of the symphony. I just love the tone that you can get from a cello. And I thought I would like to learn to play a cello. And so I rented one. And then John, my husband, asked my son Peter, who was an instrument maker, to make me a cello. And so, but I just didn't carry it on. You know, you really have to practice an instrument daily and to get nimble and to have your fingers toughen up enough to be able to hold down the strings and so on. So it's really one of the great disappointments in my life that I did not give it what it required. So I don't play it now, but I have this beautiful cello.
Thank you, Vina. Marion.
Hi, first of all, I need to know if my voice and sound is coming through.
Yes.
I'm Marion. Okay. I live in Antioch, California, in the East Bay. When I was a child, I played piano and I played the viola since 4th grade. Well, I started on the violin, and I'm very petite, but the orchestra teacher said, "But we need a viola player." So he put me on that, and it was bigger than the violin. I couldn't understand why he put little me on this bigger instrument, but I learned to play that, and I actually appreciate the viola supporting the orchestra. And I can hear orchestras playing now, and I can pick out all the instruments in part because I was part of, the school orchestra, and I know the sound of all the instruments. My mother was a pianist, and I enjoy orchestra music and symphony music in part because I appreciate all the instruments coming together. Thank you.
Marion. Sasha.
All right. Well, I'm in the piano club, but to be original, I specifically like a melancholy piano. I feel like it's just really touches something deep in me, and it's very evocative and stirring for me to hear a piano that's just slow and brooding and melancholy. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you. Renew. What is your favorite instrument and why?
Well, I love the piano too, and in fact, we bought one because I wanted to learn, but never got around to it. Difficult to find teachers here, so we finally sold it. now I have discovered the joy of using a harmonica and learning to play it. And so I'm watching a lot of videos and enjoying the music. So I think that is possibly my favorite now.
Lovely. Thank you. And Deb.
I always think of 5 different things I like when I'm asked what I like. So I just would just say I'd classify all the instruments I like. First of all, it's front row or doing real close up to a symphony orchestra. When I was a child, I was able to get up to the front row. We ran up and listened to Detroit Symphony Orchestra. And over on the side were horns, and I got to hear what they sound like live. And hearing them live, it's another world to hear things live. I also had the experience to hear live 6 cellos in the green room in Sonoma County, up in Rohnert Park, Sonoma State. And 6 cellos, they were playing the New World Symphony. And I just felt like it was one of the luckiest times for me in my adult life, was to be able to sit in the 4th row or something and just hear the vibrations of 6 cellos. And a cello is a beautiful instrument itself, but when 6 of them are booming and zooming, the vibration. I mean, I've always liked a dramatic, vibrational. I loved bagpipes when I was young. I still like them, but not all day, But just I just love that kick, that call that you hear. Some fellow was playing bagpipes underneath the freeway up here in Santa Rosa one day, and he was just standing out there. I don't know if he had a red hair and a beard. I don't know if he's just a tourist or coming over here and decided he was going to get out his bagpipes, and he was out there playing away. And I went out there and I videotaped him and ran back in. I just had to have that sound. And right now I just mess around on a banjo, which is kind of noisy to some people, especially the way I play. Then it has vibrations. And so the vibrations communicate a lot of wisdom or life to me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Deb.
Yeah.
Now, Vicky, I know Laura was here at one point, and Shri, I can't see them anymore. Is that
Shri
correct?
is here. I can see her.
Okay.
Shri, do you want to tell us what your favorite instrument is? She may not be there. Nope, I guess not.
Hi, Vicky.
Okay.
Just a minute. Hi. Hello, everyone. Such lovely stories. Yeah, for me, the instrument that I like to hear is flute. Because in India, flute is associated with our, our gods, and it is whenever you hear to a flute music early in the morning, it's completely divine. But otherwise, I do like guitar also. When someone plays a guitar and sings a song simultaneously, it really gives a lot of happiness. And yeah, so guitar is something I wanted to learn from a long. And I love piano also. I mean, I just can't choose one. Yeah, thank you.
I get that.
Okay. Thank you, Shri. Okay. Okay, and I read in the chat that Laura had left early, so
yes,
that explains that. Okay, so Meg, why don't you give us your announcements, please?
Yeah, a few announcements, you mean? Sure, let's do that. That was fun, guys. That was a lot of fun. Okay, there's a lot of fun to be had this month, being that it's Valentine's. The genre storytelling is going to be about stories of love, and that is on the 18th of February from 7 to 8 p.m. And you can go ahead and go to the SAC website and get registered and enjoy those stories about love. And then I just want to let you know that the next genre storytelling is on March 18th. And this is one of our favorite. I think most of us love this genre of myths, fables, fantasy, and fairy tales. So anybody who wants to be part of that genre storytelling on March 18th, just get a hold of, what is it, you, Katie, or Vicky, one of you two peoples? Vicky, and just let her know that you would like to be nominated into the genre storytelling, and you can tell a story for that. So I know many of you are very good at that particular genre. So that's happening for genre. And then on March 4th, there is really what sounds like a special event. Paul Strickland is going to be, he's a storyteller and a musician. He's giving an interactive workshop called Reupholstering Folk Tales. Kind of sounds very interesting. And that will be in Orinda, and it's from 4:30 to 6 o'clock. And then following his workshop, there will be a concert with Tim Arenta and Claire Hennessy, Regina Stoops, and the concert will be also available online. So the cost for both the workshop and the concert is $55, which is a bargain. So if you're wanting to kind of get your myth on and you're interested in some very, very good storytellers, that would be an event that you might want to check out. Okay. You can find a lot of information on the SAC website. So just go on in there and check out what they've got going on, and you can get all the details.
Thank you, Meg. And also, if you are a member of SAC, I think you would get emails about these things too. So that's always something worth remembering. Okay, so now, and Vicky, do you have announcements?
Just about office hours. In case you don't know, we offer half-hour slots for people to practice their stories. Katie and I listen and give feedback. And we do that the first Tuesday of every month, which means the next one will be the 3rd of March. And you can just email Katie or me. So we have like a 7 o'clock to 7:30, a 7:30 to 8, and an 8 to 8:30 slot. So just drop us a line and we'll give you a slot for doing that.
And you'll find their email addresses on the notification that I send out about a week beforehand, or if frankly, get in there early. And you can also email and let me know that you'd like their email addresses if you don't have them, if you want to go ahead and get in early, I think, right? That'd be good.
Sounds good.
We could actually put our emails in the chat too.
Oh, that'd be great. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do that. So, so Vicky, are you all set?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Are you leaving us, Beth?
Yeah, I have to get up early at 6 tomorrow. I'm sorry, but I really enjoyed seeing everybody again.
Thank you again, and thank you for your story.
Yes, I loved what I did here. One of these days, if I don't have to wake up early, I'll stay for the whole event. Okay.
Okay. No worries.
Take care. It's been really nice seeing all of you. I really like your group. It's great. Thank you. Good night.
Night.
Bye, Genevieve.
Goodbye,
Bye.
Beth.
So are we now ready to go back to stories? I think so. So if we can all mute ourselves except for Rose. Please welcome Rose to the stage.
Hey. Tonight I would like to share the story of Mucky Moose. This story was written by Jonathan Allen, and I have his permission to tell it. told him the adaptations I wanted to make to it, and he has approved them. In the North Woods, a little moose was born. And as soon as he was born and could stand on his wobbly little legs, he wobbled right into the swamp, into the yuckiest, uckiest part of the swamp. And when he came out, he was swamp goo, and he slooped and he slopped as he walked along. Now all of the other little animals in the forest, oh, and they would sing out, and they would sing, "Mucky, mucky, mucky moose, smells like yucky swamp juice." Now at first, Mucky Moose got terribly, terribly upset, and he would throw a temper tantrum. Now, have you ever seen a moose throw a temper tantrum? It is not a pretty thing. But then eventually he began to say, well, it's only words, and words don't hurt me. And sometimes he even began to sing that little song himself. Mucky, mucky, mucky moose, smells like yucky swamp juice. Now, as he got bigger and his antlers got bigger, he made swamp friends in the swamp. Reginald Frog liked to sit right on the top of Mucky's head. He said, it's the only place that you could flick out your tongue and get 3 flies with 1 flick. And the bird said, breakfast on the antlers is the best place to get all of the little insects. Now, and the skunks. Yeah, the skunks thought he had a powerful smell. They liked Mucky. Now, on the far side of the forest, there was a wolf. And he was the biggest, the meanest wolf in the whole forest. And he thought, I am the biggest wolf. I should have the biggest moose for my dinner. And so one day there he was, right in the path, Mucky's path, saying, Moose, prepare yourself. I'm going to eat you for my dinner. Mickey Moose looked at him and said, no, I don't think so. The moose said, and the wolf said, why ever not? And because, said Mucky, now the wind was blowing past the wolf and into Mucky's face. And Mucky circled around until now the wind was blowing past Mucky and into the wolf's face. His tail spun like a corkscrew. His ears stuck straight out. He turned purple, fell over, dead faint. And Mucky Moose just stepped over the top of him and went down the forest path singing, Mucky, mucky, mucky moose, smells like yucky swamp juice. When that wolf woke up, he was mad. I'm gonna get him. Now, the very next day, as Mucky was going down the forest path, there was the wolf, and he had a clothespin right there on his nose. And he said, Moose, prepare yourself. I'm going to eat you for my dinner. Mucky said, I can't understand a word you're saying. I'm going to eat you for my dinner. With that clothespin on your nose, I'm never going to understand you. I'm going to eat you. His tail spun like a corkscrew. His ears flipped down. He turned purple. He turned green. Dead faint. And Mucky Moose just stepped over the top of him and went down the forest path singing, Mucky, mucky, mucky moose, smells like yucky swamp juice. Well, eventually that wolf woke up and he was mad. I'm gonna get him. And he went right down to the Army and Navy surplus store. And he bought one of those gas masks, you know, the kind that goes all over your head and it has a tank that you caught on the side. And he showed up in the path and he said, today is the day. I'm going to eat you for my dinner. Mucky Moose just looked at him and said, I don't think so. I have sharp teeth and I'm going to tear you shred to shred. Mucky Moose said, Mr. Wolf, with that mask on your face, you're not going to get even a little nibble of me. He ripped that mask off and his tail spun like a way and that way. His ears flipped that. He turned purple. He turned green. He turned blue. He turned black. And he fell over in a dead faint. And Mucky Moose just stepped over the top of him, on down the forest path singing, Mucky, mucky, mucky moose, smells like yucky swamp juice. Well, that would have been the end of the story for the wolf, except that his wolf friends came along. And they did the wolf lick maneuver. 1, 2, 3. And I think that wolf learned his lesson, because the last thing I heard, there's a wolf over in San Francisco that's advertising for jobs as a guide dog for the blind. And as for Mucky Moose, if you should ever happen to go to the North Woods, see a moose going down the forest path singing a little song, Mucky, mucky, mucky moose, smells like yucky swamp juice, you will know that you have found Mucky Moose where he walks the forest paths in the north. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Rose. Such a haunting story. I love it. Oh, that poor wolf, though. In the end, you began to feel sorry for him. It's so beautifully told. Thank you. And such a great little song. You should tell that to your grandchildren.
Yeah, I did. I made up the song that went with it.
Yeah. That's a wonderful story. Thank you again.
Good. Made it up.
Okay, so let's see. So next up we have Sharon Elway.
Okay, can you hear me? Years ago, there was a town where every single person who lived there was crabby. All that you heard from morning till night was whining and moaning and groaning and griping. The men complained that their work was too hard. The women complained nobody appreciated their work. The grandmas complained that their bones ached. And the grandpas couldn't remember what they were complaining about, but that made them the grumpiest of all. And that terrible habit went on down to the children, and they complained just as much. Oh, this is too much homework. I hate broccoli. There's nothing to do in this place. This is so boring. Well, they were right about that last part, because it really was boring, because nobody went there. Not even the peddlers who had goods to sell would go there, because nobody ever bought anything. People would just pile through their merchandise and complain that the prices were too high, the variety wasn't good. It was awful. So one day, everybody was surprised when they heard a man come down the road into town, and he was as cheery as he could be, singing at the top of his lungs, zippity doo dah. So children came running, and he had a big sack over his shoulder. So one little boy said to him, "What's in the sack, mister?" And he said, "That sack is the biggest bag of contentment you have ever seen." And the little boy said, "What's contentment?" And the peddler said, "Oh my goodness, if they don't even know what contentment is, my job is bigger than I thought." And he picked up his pace. So the children had to run to keep up with him. And when he got down to the town square, he stopped in front of the big community pine tree that was so tall. And he began to call, "Bring your troubles, one and all. Bring your troubles, large and small. Bring your troubles, put them into my sack. Bring your troubles and change them." Well, everybody had no idea how to do that. So they all stood there and thought, how are we supposed to put our troubles in a sack? But the children got the idea. And so one little girl took her skate key and she threw it in the sack. And she said, "I lost my skates." And then a little boy put his baseball hat in and he said, "I didn't make the team." And another little girl put a collar with a bell on it and said, "My cat died." And then the adults figured out what they were doing. And so a bald man put in his hairbrush, and a widow put in her dancing shoes. And an older man put in a book of poems and said, I don't read well enough to read this anymore. And they kept going until everybody had put their troubles into the sack. And then the peddler turned to that big old tree behind him and he took the troubles out one by one and he hung them like you would ornaments on a Christmas tree. And he hung them up until every single trouble was on that tree. And then he said, "This is your chance. Go take a look and pick the easiest one that you see. Pick one that would be something you could like, that would be better than what you had before." And so the people walked around that tree like they were in an art gallery, looking and looking. And over time, somebody picked one, and then somebody else picked one. And it kept going until everybody had picked one. And as it turned out, every one of them had picked the trouble that they came with in the first place. Because when they looked at all of them, they thought the one they had in the beginning was easier to manage. And then most of them went home. But some of them stayed there in the town square. And a teenager went up to the old man who had put in his book and said, "I can read that for you." And a woman went up to the little girl whose cat had died and said, "My cat just had kittens. And if you'd like to come with me, you can pick one out." And a boy went to the little girl whose skates were lost. And he said, "You can ride my bike." And so they went on figuring ways to help one another with their troubles. And nobody noticed the peddler as he folded his sack back up and started on down the road singing zippity doo dah.
Oh, thank you, Sharon. Another great story. That is just so, I think you've told that one before, haven't you? And I'd forgotten it.
Yes.
It's so simple, and so sweet. I mean that in the really nicest way. Yeah, thank you. That's a great reminder. Really enjoyed that. Okay, so now we have Renu.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is a story I heard recently and I'd like to share it with you. There was once a king who loved to listen to discourses. So every now and then he would invite a holy man or a saint to come and talk to the people in the kingdom. Now, one evening, preparations were on. A very renowned sage had been invited, and everybody in the kingdom was excited. They wanted to listen to this holy man. And so lots and lots of flowers were put up. Musicians had started to look at their instruments and practicing. It was always held in the huge open ground in the center of the kingdom. And there was also a huge banyan tree under which the saint would sit and talk. Now in that that evening, things were just getting ready when all of a sudden there was a distant sound of thunder. Dudum, 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 and lightning flashed across the sky. People looked up at the sky. Surely it wasn't going to rain. All these days the sky had been absolutely clear, but this evening of all evenings, everybody was so keen to listen to the man. But soon drops started to fall. Became a drizzle, then it became more and more, and finally it was a huge downpour. Now people had to run helter-skelter looking for shelter. Everybody was standing somewhere or the other under some roof of a house, somewhere. And they thought, let's wait and see how long this storm is going to go. 8 o'clock was supposed to start. 8:30 came, 9 o'clock came and went, and people thought perhaps it's going to be cancelled. And they were very, very disappointed. But there was an announcement. Don't leave, don't leave. The meeting is on. We are just waiting for the rain to stop. And so people waited. Finally, at 9:30, it stopped raining. So everyone gathered together again and just waited. The holy man was already seated under the tree, and he started. The talk was on karma. Now, in that kingdom, there was also a thief. He loved to set out around 10:30, 11 in the night to scope out which house he could steal from. But as the thief approached this huge ground, he heard this man's voice, and he remembered what his father used to tell him. Remember, son, we are thieves. That is our profession. Don't you ever listen to any holy man. They'll surely brainwash you. So always cover your ears. And so the minute this man heard the saint talking about karma, he quickly closed his ears and his eyes as he hid behind a tree. Now after some time, he got curious and he removed his hands. And he heard the saint say, the 3 biggest evils in this world. Number 1, stealing. Oh no, that's what I do, thought the thief. Number 2, telling lies. He thought, oh my God, I do that too. And the 3rd, drinking alcohol. Oh no, I've got all 3 of them, thought the thief. And so the discourse went on. But this guy stopped listening because now he was terrified. How am I going to get rid of these 3 horrible things that I've been doing all my life? What do I do now? What do I do? Because you see, the moment he heard the man's voice, it had been so, for him, it was so difficult not to get brainwashed. And he thought, looks like I should have listened to my father and shut my ears. That night, when the holy man was about to sleep, there was a knock on the door. The man opened the door and found a stranger. And the thief bowed to him and said, holy man, I've come to you because you see, I am a thief and I have all the evils that you listed out. I am a thief, I steal for a living, I tell lies, and I also drink. Oh, I see, said the holy man. And what do you want to do? I want all of them to be gone. I don't want to possess them anymore. Please help me in some way. The holy man said, please come in. Well, all you have to do is give up one of the 3 things, and the other 2 will automatically go away. Really? Yes. Oh, let me think. Stealing? No, I can't give up stealing. That's my profession. That's how I make my living. So I can't give that up. What about drinking? I don't think I can give that up either, because before I go for a job, I need to have a drink, and when I come back, I need to have another drink. So no, that's not possible. What about telling lies? Maybe that I could give up. Yeah, I think I'll give up telling lies. So he opened his mouth and said, holy man, I will give up telling lies. That's good. Try it out and see, the holy man. And off the man went. Now the holy man realized that this man was really very keen to change, and he hoped that he would. The next night, the thief set out. And that night, the king also happened to be out on the street. He had this habit of wearing a disguise every now and then just to walk around the streets, how it felt to be an ordinary human being in his kingdom. Now ahead of him, he saw that thief and he said, stop! And the thief stopped and looked. He said, who are you? I'm a thief. I see. And where are you going? To steal. Thought the king. A very honest thief, I must say. He said, actually, I'm a thief too, and I would like to go along with you. Of course, I would love to have company, said the thief. But have you ever tried stealing from the royal treasury? Oh, no. I'm not at that level. No. I only do small thefts here and there, just enough for me to lead a good life. Said the king. But I know a way to get to the royal treasury. Would you like to come with me? Okay, said the thief. And so the king took him all the way to the royal treasury. And the man's eyes popped when he saw the amount of gold, jewels, all kinds of things. He just couldn't stop looking. And the king said, well, take whatever you want while I help myself. The thief took out a bag and started putting some gems and some coins and some biscuits. And the king did the same. They had 2 identical bags. Both of them had their fill. And then the king said, why don't we check the second chamber? The thief said, but I think this is enough. He could see before his eyes a beautiful future, never having to want for anything, never having to steal again. But the other thief didn't seem to be satisfied. Let's just have a peek. Okay, said the thief. And they went in and they saw on a stand the 3 medallions, each one huge, studded with precious gems. And the king said, why don't we steal this? You take one, I'll take one, and we'll leave one for the king. Okay, said the thief. And so he lifted one for himself, one for the king, and then they left. The thief waved goodbye at the other one and he went back home. Now the next morning there was an announcement. The king sent out an announcement saying that everybody who had been accused of a crime had to come to the palace. So of course our thief also came there. And one by one the king questioned all of them. Yesterday there was a robbery in the royal treasury and lots of things are missing. How many of you? Which one of you was it? The thief immediately put up his hand. I was there, Your Majesty. And what did you steal? So the thief started listing out all that he had stolen. And the minister who was standing next to the king was ticking off the items on a list that he had prepared. What about the medallions? The king asked the minister. All 3 are gone, Your Majesty. 3? Thought the king. I took one, he took one. Where did the 3rd one go? Perhaps this man has taken it. Okay. He called the other ministers and asked them to search this man's pocket. And right inside, he had kept the 3rd medallion. The king said, well, that man was arrested. He called up the thief and said, you are a very honest man. So now you're going to be my minister. Are you happy? Yes, Your Majesty, I'm really happy. And so he became the minister. From that day on, he no longer had to steal, nor did he have to drink. And so he went in search of the holy man. He went in search, found him and said, Holy man, I'm so grateful to you. Because of you, I have given up everything. Stealing, telling lies and drinking alcohol. All because of you. No, it's not because of me. It's because of you. You are convinced. Your conviction made you stop lying. And when you stopped lying, the other 2 fell in place. Stay blessed, he said. And that's the end of my story. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Renu. A lovely story. What I especially liked was, the thief said he wasn't at the level for the royal treasure. That was just so well done. Thank you. Beautifully told. I enjoy that. All right. So now, Genevieve, would you like to tell your story?
Is everybody else done?
Yeah, there's time for your story.
Okay, I'll just tell a quick story.
Yeah, good. Okay, lovely.
You never know when something's going to come your way that brings memories that go both forward and backward. I recently received an email, which was the Sunday paper that Maria Shriver publishes. Maria Shriver, the daughter of Sergeant Shriver, who in the days of people of my generation was an incredible leader. He also ran as the vice presidential candidate when George McGovern ran in 1971. The post from Maria Shriver was titled Coming Home, and it had a copy of a poster that was made in 1971 for the election, or at that time, where Richard Nixon was competing against George McGovern with Sergeant Shriver as the vice presidential candidate. And the poster was made by one of my icon's idols, Sister Corita Kent. She ultimately stopped being a sister, a nun, but was known for her activist posters that were big splashes of color with writing and inspiring quotes. And this particular poster had been made for the McGovern campaign, and it had a quote from Sergeant Shriver, Maria Shriver's dad, and this person who was the head of the Peace Corps and all sorts of incredible organizations. Quite an inspiring person to remember in these times. At any rate, when I saw that, there were a couple of reasons why it drew many memories for me. One of them was of a polo shirt that I still own today. It's red, white, and blue. And I actually bought it at a thrift store about 30 years ago, but it was already vintage when I bought it because when you look at the bottom, it says copyright 1971. That is to say, it was a t-shirt that said vote. Red, white, blue, with the words vote across the middle. And it was from the McGovern campaign. It was relevant to me because that was the first time I ever voted. I voted in the 1972 election because the year before there had been an act passed which allowed 18 years olds to vote in the United States for the first time. What spurred this change was the very fact that it was said that if you were old enough to fight and die for your country, you should be old enough to pick the leaders. And this was the Vietnam era. So that was a gift that was given to us, the youth of the country, at a time that was extremely meaningful to us. At any rate, I had been very, very pleased to go to my local precinct and vote for George McGovern. But I got my first civics lesson there because although McGovern didn't have enough votes to win, he won still 37.5% of the popular vote. But if you see the map, the election map for that election, all but one state, all of them are red. Only one tiny state, I don't remember what it is, was blue because of the Electoral College. And that was when I began to realize this is not going to be easy work, is it? I was very disappointed when McGovern didn't win. But time passed and ultimately there was some justice done because the person who won against him was Richard Nixon, who later had to leave in disgrace. Unfortunately, we are not able to have bad influences leave in disgrace as well as we did in those days. But the memory that was brought to me, both when I bought that polo shirt 30 years ago at a thrift store, and when I saw the poster that Maria Shriver printed in her Sunday paper message, was that underneath the graphics of Sister Corita Kent's poster was a quote by Sergeant Shriver, who again at that time was McGovern's vice presidential choice. And it said, "Now we mount a wider stage with new and greater responsibilities in a harder world than we have ever known." And then underneath it was additional words that Shriver had spoken. It is a favorite quote of mine by Teilhard de Chardin, the philosopher. "Someday, after mastering the winds, the waves, the tides, and gravity, we shall harness for God the energies of love. And then for the second time in the history of the world, man will have discovered fire." May we continue to search for that fire. May we keep that light alive. May we return home soon to our true America. Parenthetically, when the Vietnam War was in its during the thickness of the Vietnam War era, there were so many demonstrations against it. And looking back at that time, it gives me hope that the people's activism can actually have success in returning justice to our country. And while that coming home was the theme of McGovern's campaign, the last American combat troops did in fact return home much in part to the people's will on March 29th, 1973.
Thank you, Genevieve. Oops. Thank you, Genevieve. That was a wonderful story, beautifully told as usual. Good.
Thank you. I still have that polo shirt.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm kind of lost for words there. It was really good. We're getting close to 9 o'clock, and if you want to hear a story, I have one that's a story in progress, or we could, because we've had so many beautiful stories, we could end the evening. Yeah. Now.
I vote to hear Katie's story.
So do I.
Okay. So this is a disclaimer. It is, sometimes there might be a pause or two, but I would love to tell it to you. So thank you very much. This is a story about Eduardo's homecoming. Eduardo's grandmother was a shaman, a wise woman, and she was well renowned in her neighborhood and in the women's world of medicines and magic. She was a healer, and she used plants and herbs which she gathered in the woods and in the meadows and from her own garden. She longed for a daughter to pass on all this knowledge to, but she had 6 sons. But it was her grandson, Eduardo, who showed great interest in the plants. And so, against all the rules, Eleanor began to give Eduardo this sacred knowledge. And he was hungry for it. And so by the time he was a young teenager, about 13 years old, the women discovered that Eduardo had more sacred knowledge than they did. And they were furious. And it was their anger that so terrified him that he ran away from home. And he would be away for 10 years. And when he did return, he had a few surprises. The first surprise was that his grandfather, Ernest, who he never got along with, had left him the family home and the gardens and farmland and grazing land around them. Now, Eduardo loved the home, loved the house, but he probably loved one of the gardens more. And it was a walled garden, and it was old, and it had, the stones were local stones. And it was there in this walled garden that Eleanor grew all her plants and herbs. So when Eduardo returned on a hot July morning, one of the first places that he went to, as soon as he could, was to the walled garden. And he got to the old weather-beaten door, and he tried to open it, but it was stuck. And so he put his shoulder against it and he pushed it, and it moved slightly, but not all the way. And so he stood on the threshold, and he could look into the garden. He was stunned. It was a wilderness. The weeds were high over his head. There were fallen branches. And he just stood there. And then he thought there was something missing. And he realized that there was a spring right at the entrance to the garden, a sacred spring, but it was no longer running. And so he took time, and he went and he cleared the ground, and he got rid of the weeds and the rocks, till finally the spring began to flow again. And it was during that time when he was clearing the spring, he began to plan how he could bring the garden back to its former glory. And he thought about his grandmother's gardener. His name was Willow. And Eduardo thought, if I could persuade Willem to come back to the garden, he could tell me, he could remember what Eleanor had been growing there, and we could restore it. So the next day he walks to old Willem's cottage, and it's just the same. I mean, out in the front garden, it's just a riot of color. And this is the joy, pride and joy of Willem's wife, Ruby. And Eduardo walks to the back, and there's the vegetable garden and some fruit trees. And he sees an old man, his head full of white hair, stooped back. And he realized with a bit of a shock that it was old Willem. It was old Willem's dog, Ray, that saw Eduardo and barked. And then, sensing he was a friend, raced over to Eduardo. Old Willem swung around. "Who are you? What do you want?" And Eduardo said, "It's Eduardo." "Who?" "Willem, it's Eduardo." And the old man looked at him, and he was trying to understand, trying to see something of that 13-year-old boy in this fully grown man. And at that point, Ruby raced from the house. She had heard all the noise. And she arrived when Eduardo was explaining to Willem that he wanted him to come back to work for him. But he hadn't yet got all the details. But she had heard enough. All her old anger and resentment just welled up. She had been so angry of how they had been treated when they were working for the grandfather and for the family. And she just shouted all her anger and resentment to Eduardo. And he stood there and he allowed it to flow through him and around him and above and below him. And he thought, probably everyone in the community who worked for my grandfather or my family feel the same way. No one will want to befriend me. I am alone again. It was a few days later when old Willem came to the walled garden and visited Eduardo. Eduardo immediately apologized, but they sorted it all out, the misunderstanding, that it was Eduardo who'd do all the physical work, and he would pay Willem to be the memory of the garden. And Eduardo began to show the old man the work that he'd done. He'd begun to prune some of the apple trees in the small orchard there. "Well, my boy, who taught you how to do that?" "The monks at the abbey." "Ooh. And what else did they teach you?" "Well, they taught me how to sing chants." "My boy, you always had a lovely voice. Why don't you sing me one of them chants?" And so Eduardo began to sing, and it was the words and the melodies that just kind of wove themselves into the rhythm of the work. Eduardo as a boy was known to be wild, never happier than being in the forest and climbing trees or racing through the meadows, or fishing in the river, or camping out under the stars. And they noticed that some things didn't change, because when Eduardo had time, he would go to the forest and he would climb the tallest trees he could find. And he would weave himself nests. He would weave branches in and out of each other and grasses, and he would line them with moss. And he would lie there and often sleep there at night. Or he would lie in the sweet grasses of the meadow, or on the mountain slope and listen to the wolves soulful howl. It was the two men made good progress in the garden, but the days were getting shorter and colder. They watched squirrel hunting and storing nuts, and they realized it was time for them to prepare for winter. And the winds came, and the winds brought the rain, and the rain brought the snow. And just before the winter solstice, they went to the walled garden and closed the door, because it was tradition that Mother Earth, be allowed to rest, to sleep, and to dream under a thick white blanket of snow, and dream in the spring. And so Eduardo closed the door, and the two men turned to leave. Old Willem turned to him and said, boy, what else did them monks teach you? Eduardo thought for a minute, and he smiled. They taught me patience. Oh, my boy. We'll need a lot of that this winter. Blessings, abundance, and healing to you all. So, thank you all. It's been such a great evening. Maybe you can all unmute. It's just been so fun. Thank you again. And thank you for Sharon, who is our scribe. I often forget that. Thank you. And
thank you for Katie, who has been hosting us all.
Yes, thank
Yes.
you. Indeed, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Wonderful
Thank
stories
you.
tonight, everyone.
Really.
yes.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you,
Yeah.
everybody.
Good to see you, Lori.
You too. Thanks.
Yeah.
Been a while. Glad you're back.
Hey, Lori.
See you again.
Okay.
Anybody
All right.
interested in looking in the chat, I put pictures of those costumes.
They were pretty funny.
I saw them.
Oh, okay.
I saw them. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's better. Real good. Wow.
Wonderful.
Good night.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Thank
Wonderful.
you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh,
Beautiful night.
thank you.